So Mother Teresa once said that loneliness and the feeling of being unwanted is the most terrible poverty, which is something I ended up learning the hard way. You see, between the ages of 13 and 15, I didn't have any friends. When I would text people and ask them if they wanted to hang out, they were either busy or they ignored my messages altogether. And a few weeks into the summer, between the 7th and the 8th grade, I realized that this was because nobody wanted to be around me. I spent that summer in my room, by myself, wondering what was wrong with me. And I ended up spending all of middle school lonely and isolated from my peers. By the time I entered high school, I suffered from a very low self-esteem and very severe depression. Now that I'm older, I can look back and reflect on this part of my life, and I've come to realize that my poor mental health wasn't my fault or anybody else's. No, the root of my struggles came from feeling like I didn't belong. I didn't have a group to lean on and have the support of, which is a crucial thing for everyone to have. By dictionary definition, belonging means to fit in, and it's a human necessity, much like shelter or water. It's crazy that a very simple word with a very simple definition could have such an impact on us as humans. Yet, every psychological study on belonging shows that people who don't feel like they belong don't see value in their lives. According to social psychologist Gregory Walton, belonging is a psychological lever that has broad consequences. Our interests, motivation, health, and happiness are all inextricably tied to the feeling that we belong to a greater community. But what is a greater community? Well, it's simply a group of people who have common interests and who appreciate our presence. A community can be anything, such as a group of friends, a sports team, a church, or even a town committee. It's a place where we have a valued and essential role to play. And no matter what role it is we play, we know we are valued by the rest of our community. And the welcome feeling that we get from the people that we surround ourselves with validates us, and it reminds us that our lives are important. As humans, we need to feel included in order to feel motivated. When we're excluded for a long time, it takes a giant toll on us. It's completely normal to feel lonely every now and again. When that feeling is consistent over a long period of time, it becomes detrimental to our health. In fact, several studies have been done on this, and they've all come to the exact same conclusion. Isolation is just as bad for us as smoking. Yeah, social isolation can cause inflammation, which can lead to heart disease and type 2 diabetes. Not only that, but loneliness is dangerous to our mental health as well. When I spent the better part of 2 years lonely and without a community of my own to belong to, my mind would often wander to dark places. I blamed myself for being too weird and was convinced that nobody would ever like me. After all, none of my old friends liked me, so why would anybody? Keep in mind that nobody else ever told me any of this, and nobody else ever told me that my life was worthless, except for myself. But because I didn't have a community to belong to, I had no rules, and therefore my life had no value to me. My prolonged isolation was detrimental to my health, and it nearly killed me. In the United States, suicide is the 10th most common death in people over the age of 10, and 1 out of 5 people with severe depression attempt it. When someone kills themselves or attempts to kill themselves, we often look for a reason as to why. And I can't speak for every single case, but according to journalist Andrew Solomon, a big contributor to people taking such drastic measures is that they felt isolated from the rest of the world and didn't feel like they belonged. So, when we take all of these facts into consideration, we're left with a very simple notion that a person can die from a broken heart. And whether people are being excluded on purpose or by circumstance, 2 surveys conducted have found that 40% of adults feel lonely. So what can be done about this? How do we make others feel like they belong? Well, unfortunately, there isn't a step-by-step formula for feeling included. There is no quick fix or miracle solution. But that doesn't mean it's impossible to help out. The simplest of gestures, like a reassuring smile to a peer, or starting a small conversation with the person in line behind you, can go a long way. And if you yourself feel excluded, reach out. Psychology Today says that chronically lonely people often find it difficult to interact socially. But Eleanor Roosevelt said you should do one thing a day that scares you. So while the fear that nobody will appreciate you is overbearing, you have to keep in mind that there is a community out there who will value you. You just have to find it. Once I got to high school, I decided to join the drama club. I almost completely chickened out of going, but with sweaty palms and shaking legs, I entered the room, and my life changed forever. Not immediately. In fact, it happened so slowly that I didn't realize how big of an impact that club had on me until I looked back and thought about it. When I first entered that room, I had low self-esteem. I thought I was weird and annoying, and I thought that no one would ever like me. And maybe there are people out there who think these things about me, who don't like me, and who will never like me. But the people I met in that room taught me that all of this was okay. Being weird was okay, because everybody in that room was weird. They taught me to appreciate everything about myself and encouraged me to be everything about myself. They taught me to focus on all of my strengths instead of my weaknesses, and they loved me for both. Gradually, I came out of my shell and I made genuine friends who cared about me just as much as I cared about them. My mental health isn't perfect, and it might never be. But if I hadn't been brave enough to reach out and to find a community, it would have only continued to get worse. And who knows where I'd be today. Belonging is essential to us as humans. We need to feel like we belong just as badly as we need to breathe. You can suffocate in loneliness and no one would hear a thing. But if instead of treating loneliness like it's something to be ashamed of, and instead remind ourselves that sometimes we just haven't found a community who values us yet, then we can begin to look for one that does, and we can begin to appreciate ourselves a little more. I encourage you all to be brave enough to seek these communities, and I encourage you all to be kind enough to accept others into your communities, whatever they may be. Everyone belongs somewhere, and no one should ever be made to feel like they don't. Thank you.